What if the world before the flood was nothing like we were told? What if beings not human once walked the earth? Ancient texts speak of a time when the boundary between heaven and earth was broken, a time when powerful entities descended from above and changed humanity forever. Most people have never heard this story, not because it doesn't exist, but because it was never included in most modern Bibles. Yet in ancient writings like the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch, a very different history is described. A history of rebellion, a history of forbidden knowledge, and a time when angels came to earth. According to these texts, there existed a group known as the Watchers. They were not ordinary angels. They were observers, assigned to watch over humanity. But something changed. They began to desire, to question, to interfere, and eventually, to descend. This was not a small event. This was a coordinated movement. A decision made by many, not one. They gathered together, bound by an oath that would alter the course of human history forever. And once that oath was made, there was no turning back. They left their place in heaven and came down to earth, not as saviors, but as beings with their own intentions. What happened next would lead to corruption, chaos, and ultimately destruction on a global scale. Because when they arrived, they did not come empty-handed. They brought knowledge, forbidden knowledge, and humanity was never the same again. But who were these Watchers really? Why did they choose to leave? And what exactly did they bring with them? The answers are far more unsettling than most people realize. And it all begins with their descent. The descent of the Watchers was not random, it was planned. Led by powerful figures, often named in ancient texts as leaders among them. These beings made a collective decision to leave their heavenly position. But there was a problem. They understood the risk. This was not just disobedience. It was a direct violation of divine order. So they made an oath, a binding agreement. Not one would turn back, not one would abandon the others. Together, they would descend. According to ancient accounts, this event took place on a mountain, often identified as Mount Hermon. It was there they swore their oath. And from that moment, everything changed. When they came to earth, they did not arrive weak or hidden. They came with presence, authority, power, and humanity noticed. These were not ordinary beings. They were different, and soon interaction began. At first, it may not have seemed like a threat, but their intentions quickly became clear. They were no longer just observers. They became participants, and then influencers. What started as curiosity turned into interference, and interference turned into control. But their greatest impact was not their presence. It was what they chose to give, because the Watchers began to reveal things humanity was never meant to know. Knowledge that would accelerate civilization, but at a cost, a very heavy cost. And once that knowledge spread, there was no way to contain it. The Watchers did not come empty-handed. They brought knowledge. But not all knowledge is meant to be shared. According to ancient texts, they began teaching humans things far beyond their time. Weapons of the art of war, how to shape metal into tools of destruction. They revealed secrets of the earth and how to exploit them. But it didn't stop there. They taught sorcery, enchantments, hidden practices that blurred the line between the physical and the unseen. They introduced astrology, the reading of the stars, and knowledge of the heavens that humanity was not prepared to understand. Even more disturbing, they taught seduction, adornment, ways to manipulate appearance and desire. And with that, something changed in human behavior. Society began to shift, morality began to weaken. What was once natural became corrupted. What was once balanced became chaotic. This knowledge spread quickly, and with it came power, but not wisdom. Humanity began to misuse what it had been given. Violence increased, greed grew, and something new began to emerge from this interaction. Something unnatural, something that would reshape the earth itself. Because the Watchers didn't just teach humans. They crossed a line that should never have been crossed. And the result was something the world had never seen before. The union between the Watchers and human women led to something unprecedented: offspring. But not ordinary children. These beings were described as giants, the Nephilim. They were larger, stronger, different, and their presence changed everything. At first, they may have seemed extraordinary, but it quickly became clear they were unstable. Their hunger was immense, their behavior destructive. They consumed resources at an unnatural rate, and when that was no longer enough, They turned on humanity. Violence spread across the earth. Entire regions fell into chaos. These were not just powerful beings, they were uncontrollable, and humanity suffered because of it. The earth itself, according to ancient descriptions, became filled with corruption. Bloodshed increased, order disappeared, and what had once been a developing civilization began collapsing into disorder. The Watchers had created something they could not control, and now the consequences were unfolding. But this level of destruction did not go unnoticed, because according to these accounts, the earth itself cried out, and that cry was heard. The corruption of the earth reached a point where it could no longer continue. According to ancient texts, the outcry against what was happening reached the heavens, and a response was set in motion. This was no longer just disobedience. This was full-scale corruption of creation. So judgment was declared. Powerful angels were sent, not to observe, but to act. Their mission was clear: stop what had begun. The Watchers were to be held accountable. Those who had descended would not return freely. They would be bound, confined, removed from influence. Their actions had consequences. And now those consequences would unfold. The Nephilim, the giants, would also face destruction. Their existence was not meant to continue. And so, a cleansing began, a reset. But this would not be a small event. It would be something far greater, something that would affect the entire world. Because the corruption had spread too far, and only one solution remained. A solution that would wipe the earth clean and start again. What came next would become one of the most well-known events in human history, but few understand what truly led to it. The solution was not gradual. It was absolute: a flood, a complete reset of the earth. According to ancient accounts, this was not just about human corruption. It was about everything that had gone wrong. The influence of the Watchers, the existence of the Nephilim, the spread of forbidden knowledge. All of it had to be erased. And so, the flood came, covering the earth, ending an era that had spiraled out of control. But even after the destruction, the story did not truly end. Because some texts suggest that the spirits of the Nephilim did not disappear. They remained influencing, lingering, becoming what some describe as unseen forces. And the Watchers? They were bound, awaiting judgment. Their story, unfinished. What makes this even more fascinating is that these accounts exist outside what most people are taught. Texts like the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch preserve details that many have never explored. Not all traditions include them, but they remain, raising questions, challenging assumptions, and leaving us with one final thought. What if the world before the flood was far more complex than we've been told? And what if echoes of that past still exist today?